All right, today we're going to talk about life in the Civil War days. Um, it wasn't glory and wondrous things. Being a soldier is a tough life. You go through a lot of hardship. It is um, very difficult to live in these conditions. We talk about social distancing today. Not much social distancing going on in soldiers, so they had to learn to live with each other. Um, Survive with each other. I mean, think about being in the winter. I mean, camping is great in the spring and summer, maybe fall. Wintertime, not a lot of fun trying to stay warm and out in the open. Even in the summertime, when it gets really, really hot, wearing these wool clothing, it's not the best situation. Remember, these guys they're not taking showers and baths every day. In fact, they might not even be taking showers and baths every month. It could be weeks or even months before they have a chance to really clean. And you can see their clothes. They're wearing the same clothes pretty much every day. So if you had to wear the same clothes, guess what's going to happen? It's going to start getting holes. It's going to start wearing out. And this became a particular problem for the soldiers in the South as supplies ran low. Remember, the North is industrialized, so they're able to produce a lot of clothes and weapons and ammunition for their soldiers, and the South really doesn't. So the soldier's life is really a difficult one. You know, disease killed more soldiers than the actual battles. I mean, bullets were not as feared as the disease. Again, we understand that because you could see that their social distancing is not very good. So diseases run very quickly through armies and camps and so forth. So they have to be very careful about that. Um, Things are cold in the winter, too hot in the summer. They don't have the proper supplies. All they're doing is drilling. As you can see, the soldier says the first thing in the morning we do is drill and drill, drill again, drill, 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 more drill, then lastly drill. So it's a boring existence. They're constantly marching around and doing their drills. Um, so they would go hungry. Maybe the food wouldn't arrive. Whatever food they would get, salt pork, dried beans, and biscuits, really hard biscuits, not especially appetizing, especially since you're eating it every day for a long time. So if that's all you're going to get to eat, it's a pretty miserable existence. Fruit and vegetables are just not available. It's hard to get that. You have to get things that can travel and won't spoil too quickly. So again, we talk about the uniforms. They start getting messed up, and if, as in the South, they don't have a lot to send their soldiers, so the situation for the Confederates deteriorates very quickly. Now, as for the women, wives and mothers that were left at home, all the men go off to fight, and so the women in the North have to learn to run their businesses and factories. Um, the women in the South have to run the plantations and farms, and things become more and more scarce. Now, I do want to make a quick point about the women here. Remember, right before the war, women are trying to get the right to vote. They're trying to get more rights. And as whenever a war happens, women have to step up and do more for their families and for their country, and that gives them more weight to what they have to say. Hey, we deserve more rights. We deserve equal rights with men. We're doing the same thing that men are doing right now. We're running these businesses and factories. We are capable. We can do these things. And so they get more and more credit because of the situation. It's a bad situation, but for women, it's an opportunity to show what they can do, and it helps their cause immensely. Um, but in the Confederacy, their money becomes worthless. Nobody wants their money. I mean, if I were to offer you monopoly money for your car, you wouldn't take it. It's worthless. It doesn't mean you can't take monopoly money and go to the store and buy something else. They'll laugh at you. So the same thing happened with the Confederacy and their dollar. People didn't want to get that money. They knew it wasn't going to last very long. The war was coming to an end. The Confederacy was going to die, and so that money became worthless. And whatever money people did have in the South, they couldn't use. So they can't buy anything. Um, there's nothing in the stores. That the economy just completely collapses, and people are starving and really struggling um, during this time. One name I do want you to remember is Clara Barton. She is a particularly important person that is not mentioned very much in history, and I wish she would. I'm glad they put her in here. She was a trained nurse, and she helped train people and organized hospitals so that wounded soldiers and people with diseases would not die. She saved countless amounts of lives. Um, and then went on to start the American Red Cross. She was very, very important. The American Cross exists today and does a lot of great things. So Clara Barton is the one that's behind all that. She organizes um, all these new techniques to help save lives, make hospitals more clean, and so that disease won't spread. I mean, one of the things, if you have surgery, if they cut you open, you're now can be exposed to disease a lot more than if you're, regular and healthy. The germs can get into your wound and cause an infection. And so she came up with um, techniques that they knew, but they weren't implementing. She forced them to make sure that these soldiers were protected, and all these lives were saved because of her efforts. Women also served as nurses and spies. Don't underestimate. Nobody talks about spies because they're secret. But spies were very important in this war. In fact, a lot of Confederate victories can be attributed to the spying that they did in Washington to find out where these troops were going. So even some cropped their hair, dressed as men, and went to fight in the battles. We don't know too much about them because they were hiding. They were not being truthful of who they are. So it's hard to give them credit because they're doing things in a clandestine way. Um, and then these are being fought. These battles are being fought near people's homes. So people would travel to the camps and go, you know, the battle is right down the road, so I'm going to go visit my husband or my brother or whoever. And so these women and children will go and be near their loved ones at these camps. One last thing I wanted to mention about, again, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. One thing that was really bad about this war was that you're fighting against people that you knew. When you go into fight a war, let's say you're going to fight a war in World War II, they go to Germany and they're fighting Germans. They don't know them. Okay, so fighting those people is not a big deal, but in this war, they knew the people on the other side. They may be family members, friends, whoever, and then they come across somebody that they knew that's in another uniform that they may have contributed to their death. It's a hard thing to deal with. So this is what makes a civil war such a devastating war when you know the people that you are fighting against. So on that happy note, I'm going to end the lesson here. What we should remember is that the lives of the soldiers were not good. They didn't get paid very well. African American soldiers got paid even less, and they weren't even respected. Women had to learn to run businesses and factories in the north, plantations and farms in the south. The economy collapsed. Their money became worthless, and they could not afford to keep their soldiers clothed and give them ammunition. This just made the South's demise come about even more quickly. Clara Barton, definitely remember her name. She starts the American Red Cross and does a lot to help keep soldiers safe and from dying from their wounds or disease, and that women played a big part that we don't really know exactly because we they did it as spies. They pretended to be men, so we really don't know their names, but we do know that they did these things. And that's it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. We're almost done. Two more lessons.